The political events of this past week have been traumatic for everyone. And the question in front of us for everyone is whether we will actually walk through the pain and metabolize it, or whether we will try and stuff it in the back someplace, and in so doing, increase the likelihood that we will inadvertently cause increasing pain for others, or even for the next generation. There are historic practices that you can use to metabolize your pain. I invite you to learn about them and to use them. They're simple and they feel good. Resmaa Menakem published a book in fall of 2020 called My Grandmother's Hands that has been really eye-opening and transformative for me and for some of my colleagues at ILIF. I invite you to check it out for yourself. Resmaa, using psychological theory and practices of the African American Black Church, invites us to recognize that there are ways that trauma not only sits in our minds, but also sits in our bodies. And that if we address that pain when we are in a safe moment, and settle our bodies, reassure our bodies, we can move through that pain, what he calls metabolizing it, so that it no longer is lodged in our physical selves in the same way. And that leaves us free to not act in ways that surprise or are undesirable to us in future situations. So the first step in thinking about metabolizing the trauma from this past week is to choose a time and a place in which you feel and you know you are safe, and to then start the practice by actually looking around, and in particular looking behind you, to reassure your body that you are in a safe moment. And then to engage in one of several different actions that can help what he calls settle or reassure your body. One of those practices might be simply to place your hand and then your other hand over your heart, and to feel the beat of your heart, to feel its steadiness, its slowness, and you're okay, even as you think through where you were and what you were doing when you first learned about events from this past week. Another practice is a practice that works particularly well when you're in the presence of other people, and that is to hum together. We know this from the civil rights movement, and if you think back on what you know about how civil rights protesters prepared, part of what they did was to sing together. And that singing, that vibration on the voice, not only settles oneself, but it also connects one to the bodies that we're in the room with. And that settledness is a gift that can be sustained by the group, even in the face of dogs and armed police and water cannon and the other atrocities that civil rights marchers experienced as they moved into the protest itself. Well, as we are processing or metabolizing what has happened this past week, we can engage those same kinds of offering the settledness of our bodies together to help hold us in while we're facing the pain and experiencing our emotions in response to what we saw. Our bodies can stay settled, can stay able to let that pain move through us and out of our bodies rather than holding it tight. So singing together, moving together. One might do what I call the African-American choir two-step. One might move from side to side in synchronous with a group of people. One might rock oneself like one would holding a baby. You know, we hold babies and we settle them by moving them side to side, or we sit in a rocking chair with them and we settle them by moving back and forth together. We can do that for our own bodies by ourselves, and we can do that in the presence of others as well, particularly as we are sharing the stories of what we felt, what we fear, what we hope we might be able to do in response to what has happened. So those are just a few of the practices that Resmaa Menakem provides us in My Grandmother's Hands. I recommend the book to you to discover some of the others, but I also recommend to you that you actually provide some of that comfort to yourself, and that you let yourself dwell and be with the feelings you have about what has happened, the fears that you have about what has happened, and allow those fears to move through so that you can be attentive to what needs to be done, and in particular, what needs to be done differently.